US technology stocks such as Nvidia and AMD, they're holding up the investing lantern, lighting up a new path for a new era of sales and investment in artificial intelligence. And this is because foreign demand is increasing. Capital flows are set to come from regions previously thought unimaginable. All of this is happening, ushering in what looks like could be the birth of a new multi-year investment cycle with significant upside potential. Here's everything that you need to know and consider. My name's Jessica Amir, a market strategist here with Mumu. It's great to have your company for this weekly on the 16th day of May. So why now? Well, before we get into the detail, let's just pause and think about what happened this week, because there was lots taking shape. Investors piled their capital thick and fast into Nvidia, AMD and semiconductor ETFs such as the SMH. Now there's clear conviction the AI infrastructure build out, meaning data centers, computer chips, it's only just at the beginning. Now, before we dive into the thesis of why you need to consider investing in AI if you already haven't, let's just set the scene. So this week, Nvidia became the second biggest company in the world. It overtook Apple, and it's now got a market valuation or a market size of 3.3 trillion US dollars. This is historical. Look, just as iPhone catapulted Apple to the top, now it's Nvidia's chips driving it. And Nvidia's shares just need to rise, would you believe, 1.8% for it to overtake Microsoft and become officially the world's most valuable company on the planet, with a market cap of 3.4 trillion US dollars. Now, let's just touch on the ideas and I guess some broad thinking to contextualize how big Nvidia already is. So we just said Nvidia is valued at $3.3 trillion. It's now worth more than France's entire economy. Their national GDP is 3.2 trillion US dollars. That's nearly as large, or Nvidia is also nearly as large as Britain's economy, which is 3.8 trillion US dollars. Now, unlike those two economies, what's really exciting is Nvidia's growth prospects seem so much more powerful. In fact, Nvidia's earnings are far stronger and far superior than any company of this size and scale. And remember, it's earnings that drives share price growth, right? That's why Nvidia's shares are taking off like a rocket ship. Well, indeed, they've done that throughout history. So while Britain and France are struggling to achieve 2 to 3% growth a year in GDP, Nvidia is growing their earnings at a record 114% year on year. Next year, the average analyst sees Nvidia's earnings continuing to grow, growing at 54%. So again, remember, earnings drive share price growth. I encourage you to consider this. As we can see, look, the chart in front of us is what Nvidia's shares have done over the past 5 years. Nvidia's shares are up 1,460%. But let's just take a look at why you could expect more upside in Nvidia. Most important, the next catalyst is probably what we see from their quarterly results. They're due to be released on May 29. So the end of this month, we'll know and we'll have a pretty good idea about how much money Nvidia made last quarter and what they see for the future. Now, Wall Street is expecting $43.2 billion US in quarterly revenue. Now, annualized on a yearly basis, this means Nvidia should theoretically be earning 148 billion US dollars in revenue. Well, that's what the average Wall Street analyst is thinking. Now, whether we look at that on a quarterly or annual basis, both of those figures, there will be record all-time highs for Nvidia's revenue. Now, if the market's happy with what they hear at the end of the month and they're happy with Nvidia's outlook, remember, Nvidia's shares are probably likely to grow because an upside surprise typically results in a company's shares rallying. Now, the market is already betting if Nvidia delivers good news, Nvidia shares could pop 7.7% the day after their results. So that's the next thing for you to consider. But let's just take a bigger step back right now. Think about more broadly over the past week, what has taken shape? Well, there's three significant elements or announcements that have really strengthened the case for investing in AI and for this new era to really take off. The first thing is I want you to consider is this. The US is expected to lift chip export restrictions that were previously imposed by the Biden administration. Simply, this means sales to other countries can surge if this happens. For example, think about what Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said. He came out and said China's AI market alone could reach $50 billion in the next couple of years. Now, let's add into the mix the fact that we've also heard from the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. They're seeking to order 1 million Nvidia chips. Nvidia currently is getting about 24% of their revenue, by the way, from international sales. Now, obviously, this is painting a picture that international sales could climb significantly if we see Biden's previous restrictions quashed by Trump's administration. The second monumental game-changing element that occurred this week was that the Middle East has basically unveiled a game-changing reckoning phase of them basically seeking to become a new AI hub. So both the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are basically pledging to spend billions of dollars to build out AI hubs. Now, Saudi Arabia, via Humane, that's an AI firm owned by the Sovereign Wealth Fund, that announced a major infrastructure partnership with not just Nvidia, but also with AMD, Cisco, and Amazon's AWS. Now, for Nvidia, what does this involve? Well, it involves supplying 18,000 pin-up Grace Blackwell chips to the group Humane to help build 500 megawatts of AI infrastructure over the next 5 years. And that'll need a lot more of NVIDIA's chips. In fact, hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA's GPUs. Now, that's pretty exciting, right? Now, for AMD, let's just go to that. What can you expect? Well, for AMD, the Saudi deal means $10 billion US dollars. They basically inked a $10 billion deal to supply AI chips for the US and Middle East-based projects. So that's pretty exciting. What about for Amazon's AWS? Well, the Saudis pledged to invest $21 billion in US data centers in Georgia and Ohio to meet growing global demand for cloud AI services. Again, this is pretty bullish, setting a narrative of even more deals than we previously imagined for AI. Now, the deal with the United Arab Emirates, that could be even bigger than the deals that were announced this week. In fact, they're set to build an AI campus 16 kilometers in size with US-made computer chips from Nvidia and AMD. And Nvidia will deliver hundreds of thousands of the most advanced computer chips annually directly to the UAE. And the majority of the chips will go right into US cloud service providers, and about 100,000 will go to the Emirati AI firm called G42. So that's the second catalyst or wake-up call for investing in AI to really pick up. Now, thirdly, as we mentioned last week, there's new estimates that AI investment spending will far exceed $1.6 trillion by the year 2032. That's monumental. Now, this is why you should be considering adding semiconductors and cloud service leaders to your portfolio if you already aren't holding them. They're basically essential in building out AI infrastructure, and this will support the next wave of AI growth. So consider looking at some of the investing companies that do stand to benefit. Some of those we've touched on today. And again, just do remember that they are going to benefit from this $1.6 trillion freight train of spending that is headed for the global sector at large. So companies to consider, obviously Nvidia, number one, the pin-up leader, AI chip leader, earnings growth of 54% expected. That's what market estimates are expecting. AMD, another AI chip leader, earnings growth. The market is thinking that their earnings will grow at 23% year on year. That was all expectations by the way, before all these deals were announced, whether inked or loosely announced over the past week. Amazon, the third stock that we've mentioned there, for those that are tuning in on the podcast, we're just flashing up the stocks to watch on the screen. So Amazon, obviously the leader in cloud infrastructure. This will basically be the backbone to what the Middle East is needing. And their earnings, sure, they're not expected to grow that vastly, but they are the motherboard, I guess you could say, in the build out of this AI infrastructure investment. Lastly, if stock picking is not for you, do consider looking at the SMH ETF that roared up this week, and it's up about 40% from its lows. But the SMH ETF, it's a diversified exposure to getting you investments into the space. It includes Nvidia, AMD, among others. And that's the weekly. For more information on the stocks and ETFs that we've covered today, head over to Mumu's platform, and don't forget to also check out the estimates for what you can expect for Nvidia's results when they report at the end of the month. Have a happy and safe weekend. We'll see you on Monday.